All right, so before I can talk about fall and winter reading proper, I only think it's right to go ahead and wrap up my summer reading. So what we're going to do is we're going to briefly speak about certain books that I have not mentioned on this channel because I have not been frequent on this channel in months. All right. But first, if this is your first time seeing my face or knowing of my existence, my name is Diamond. I go by Jada Reads on this channel, and over here I like to do reading vlogs, book reviews, and everything in between. So if that is something that you're interested in, I think you should consider subscribing. All right, now without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so my last reading wrap up on the channel was like the last real sit down reading wrap up where I say books I read this month was in March. Since March, well, actually, no, the last one was April and May books. So I'm supposed to be talking about June books, July books, August books, September books, but we're not going to do that because I actually talk about my June and July reads in the video at the end of the video where it's titled The One Where I Read Blue Sisters Then Stop. I do mention those books briefly. Well, no, actually, I go into depth about for like 15 minutes about those books that I read back in those months. So we can touch on them briefly here, but we're going to really talk about the ones that I have not really mentioned at all. So this is going to be a reading wrap up for, I would say, August books and September books. All right, so I mentioned the first book that I read and finished in August was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And it was a good book. Okay, it was one of those books I think I mentioned saying that it was, you know, just straight to the point romance. She touches on like a little bit more of a type sensitive subject where it's like a mother-daughter dynamic and the daughter doesn't realize that she is coping with tons of trauma that her mother produced in her life. That's like the seriousness of the story. Other than that, it's a fun romance between this guy named Justin and what is the girl's name? Justin and what is her name? Emma. So it's about Emma and Justin. Emma's a traveling nurse, and I forgot what Justin does exactly, but they meet on the internet and they start DMing each other, and then one thing leads to another, and they end up being in Minnesota in the same city. It's in the A Part of Your World universe. So we do have a few characters who enter the chat from A Part of Your World. We talk to Neil, for example, who was, I forgot the main character's name in A Part of Your World, but that was her boyfriend initially. And so they're also at the hospital that's in A Part of Your World. And so it's just like one of those types of things where it's like in the universe, but it's not quite like a trilogy or sequel, but it's in the same vicinity. And so I liked it just fine. It wasn't like a majorly like over the moon joyful story where it's like going down as one of my top favorite books of all time, but it did what it needed to do for me. And I'll continue to read Abby Jimenez like as those audio books become available to me via Libby. It was an audio book. So here's the thing, because my job is so demanding, I'm not able to really read as much as I used to, but I still crave a book every now and again. And so unless it's one of those difficult books that I tend to read a difficult book, literary fiction, something where my eyes have to see the words on the page. And then I also like to follow up with something that's gonna be fun and easy to listen to. And so that's what I'm mainly looking for in my audiobooks that I'm picking. They have to be narrated well, and I have to be able to follow the story without having to have a physical copy. And so A Part of Your World series, I'm sorry, not A Part of Your World series, but Just for the Summer, this book, it was great on audio and I loved it. I found myself really enjoying listening to it. So that's a plus. It's like a great audiobook if you're looking for an audiobook. The next book that I read in August was Big Swiss via audio as well. A wonderful audiobook. I love this book a lot. It was funny to me. It was very interesting. It follows Greta and a little bit of her best friend Sabine. They live in Hudson, New York, and she is a transcriber for a psychologist or a psychiatrist, where she types up, she listens to the audio of the meetings, of the sessions, and she transcribes them, and she becomes obsessed with this one particular session that the psychologist is having, and she nicknames this woman Big Swiss. And so it just follows the interesting storyline of Greta and how she becomes obsessed with this woman, and then she sees her out at the park one day, walks up to her, strikes up a conversation, and they immediately become friends. And so Big Swiss is reluctant to Greta, but at the same time there's something about Greta that's pulling Big Swiss in, and they just like hit it off. But it's so awkward and so weird, and so many things happen in the story that you don't expect. And I actually just recently saw a video where Nathan was like, he didn't like the book. It didn't translate well to him as he was reading it. And probably because he was right. He said something about it being good as a series or as a movie. And that's probably why I enjoyed it so much, because I was able to get it in action via audio, and the voice narrators, because it's narrators with an S, because there's multiple people that come into play to do the characters. It was done extremely well. And so I would have to say I recommend this via audiobook, especially if people aren't really liking it, reading it the regular way with your eyes, of course. But it was a great audiobook, honestly, and it's a great story. It's very interesting, very drama filled, packed with excitement. It's plot driven, of course, not really just vibes. Definitely a plot, definitely a great ending. It's just a lot going on in it, and it was a hoot to me, and I really enjoyed it. After that, in August, I read Annie Bot. Annie Bot is a story. Is her name Vanessa? No, it's her name. Her name is Annie. Duh. Annie Bot is about this robot who is a woman. She is generated, or she is made to be like the perfect girlfriend, like human, for a companion, for an actual real person. And so she's created by Doug, and he designed her. What does it say? He designed her to satisfy his emotional and physical needs. And this was a very interesting story. Honestly, it was, to me, what did I say? It's like Annie Bot was like, I think I mentioned back in that video, I think I said Annie Bot was like ChatGPT on steroids. And I said that because it was like AI, artificial intelligence. It's like Siri, you know, like for me, I don't really use Siri, but I do know that the more that you utilize Siri, the more she's able to capture everything about your voice and understand everything that you're saying, and immediately is able to answer any question that you have or go to any app that you request, because she is getting used all the time. And so that's what happens in Annie Bot. First, it's just like she's definitely acting like a robot, but not in a robotic type of way, you know, but just like everything that Doug is telling her to do, she does it with no pushback, no nothing. But as time progresses and as things start to happen and she's getting put in these different types of situations, she's giving pushback, she's asking questions, she's more so speaking on what she's interested in, what she likes, how she feels. And it's just like she's getting more and more, or she's gradually losing that kind of robotic feel, and she's starting to really imitate and feel like and seem like a real human being. And among other things, there are a lot of other subjects tackled in this story that's very interesting to me. I do like the way that the author, what is her name? I didn't even tell you guys who it was by. Sierra Greer. I like how she was able to capture the male gaze in this story. I think I mentioned in that video that I first mentioned this book, it was more like, at first it was kind of like jarring to read how a male like perceives and thinks of a woman. It's not unlike anything I already don't know, being a female living in the world today. But it was jarring reading how Doug was behaving towards her, and also like reading more of how the author was sort of sympathetic to his needs in a way, or to his best friend, and like, I don't know. But then it's also was like, this is how people are in actuality, in real life. This is how things happen. This is it, you know? So it's like, is she wrong for portraying it like this? It is a story at the end of the day. And that's why you have to like be kind of subjective and objective in your reading, and also read with more of a critical lens, and not look at things or not see things based on how you feel. Just look at it for really what it is. And so Sierra Greer was really able to capture the male emotions, and like really capture female emotions as well in Annie, even though she's a robot. And I just like how the story progressed, and I like how Annie was able to grow through things, and also how her and Doug were able to like kind of make their way back to each other, and see he saw his flaws in the end, and kind of sort of so did Annie. But it's honestly just an interesting story, and you honestly can write a thesis on this novel. You can read it multiple times over and see new things and find new things to discuss. I think this would be a good book for like a book club or something like that, or for friends to read through together, or for like a boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife to read together and like talk about it. So I really enjoyed that. The next book after that, I started to reread and get myself ready for the release of Sally Rooney's new novel, Intermezzo. And so I ended up reading Beautiful World, Where Are You? Next, we're still in August. This is in August. So yeah, I read Beautiful World, Where Are You? This is my third time reading this book. And once again, I just absolutely love it. Like, I absolutely, like, you guys, like, look at how I'm blushing. I have the biggest crush on Sally Rooney. So Beautiful World, Where Are You is following 4 people. Main characters are Alice and Eileen. They're best friends, but you follow Alice, you follow Eileen, you follow Simon, and you follow Felix. Alice and Felix are love interests in this story, and Simon and Eileen are love interests in this story. Once again, you find her kind of playing on this like interpersonal relationships, and these friendship dynamics, and the conversations that you have between everyone, and how things play out. And that's just the thing that you have to love about Sally. So it follows the author. The main person that speaks first is Alice. We meet Alice first in the story, who is actually an author, like Sally Rooney. She's a famous author, very well known, and she meets Felix on Tinder, and they go on a date. And from the date, things kind of like do what they're gonna do between the two of them, and then it's by far nowhere near a perfect relationship, but they work through things, and they get to know more things about themselves individually, meaning Alice and Felix, and they get to know things about each other together, and how each person works within a relational dynamic. And then you have Eileen and Simon, who were childhood friends, and Simon is closer in age to Eileen's sister, but not too far off at all from Eileen. And so you have them, they're like the best of friends, but there's always been something kind of between them, and so that gets to be explored as well in this novel. And I just love this book a lot. You know, like, I don't know why people can't stand Sally Rooney. Like, I really just don't get it. Like, she's an author just like any other author. She just chooses to write in a different type of way. She chooses to really focus on relationships and conversationships and sort of kind of teach you how to communicate. You can learn so much about communication and miscommunication in reading her books. And I just really like them. And this was a really great novel. It just was good. You know what I mean? I don't really have anything else to say besides the fact that everything I said about Intermezzo, if you watch my Intermezzo vlog, it all applies to this as well. So I just was refreshing myself with it, and just reading about, honestly, my favorite thing about this novel is the friendship that Alice and Eileen share. That is something that I have never been good at friendship. The way that I want to be. I like to think that I would be a great friend to someone if I could just trust them. And so what I gathered from the way that she wrote Alice and Eileen is that friendships, meaning like being best friends, platonic friendships between two girls or two guys or whatever the case may be, two others, they take work just like relationships. So that hard work, dedication that you put into a monogamous relationship, you have to do the same thing when it's a friendship involved. And so I actually know that, but it's just like, it's hard for me to be vulnerable and to really share who I really am with a person, because I'm just so fearful of them not accepting me for who I am. And so in reading Alice and Eileen's dynamic, I enjoyed the fact that they were both able to share intricate details about what they have going on in their lives, and neither one of them judging each other. That's my main thing. I'm looking for something like that. And so even if I can't have it in my life, reading it in a book, it still helps me to be able to put into perspective how I want to be in the event that I do gain friendship, later on in life or at this particular time and moving forward in my life. It helps me to know like how to be, how should a person be, how you have to like engage with a friend, you know what I mean? So that's like one of the key takeaways from this novel in particular. And I loved it. And so I also reread Conversations with Friends. I love Conversations with Friends. This is a lot of people's least favorite. Either this is their least favorite, Sally Rooney, or Normal People is a lot of people's least favorite, Sally Rooney. Equally, people love and hate that one, but this is a lot of people's least favorite. For me, I liked it. I like it. So this follows Bobby and Frances, who were in a lesbian relationship with each other. They broke up and they still remain the best of friends, and they are roommates with each other as well. And it follows their dynamic as well as the dynamic between a married couple. What's their name? Nick. The husband's name is Nick, and I don't know why, but like I have always forgotten the wife. Like I forgot her name. But Nick and Frances get into a relationship. And so Frances and Bobby kind of are like performance artists together. They perform like poetry type things together. And Frances is also a good writer, out of Dublin. They're both in college. And one other thing to note about Sally Rooney's writing is that she does a really good job of incorporating those serious things that might occur in the human life. Like for instance, in this novel, Frances ends up dealing with is it uterine fibroids, I think is what it is, and like being able to depict that on paper in a story it was done really well. I really enjoyed that. And in Beautiful World, Where Are You? It's more, I think, of an anxiety in there. And like she talks about, she mentions Audre Lorde in there. And I think the uses of erotic, they are communicating a lot in that book via email, Alice and Eileen. So I like the email aspect. Religion is spoken on a lot in that book. I really enjoyed that. And then in Intermezzo, there's drug use, there's anxiety, there is the idea of Ivan being an incel, and you have online sex work mentioned in that novel via the character Naomi, and then you have Sylvia, who is dealing with the fact that she cannot have physical sex anymore based on the fact that she was in a terrible car accident, and it's now just extremely painful for her to do. So like that's another thing that Sally Rooney does in her novels that I really like and I really enjoy. So here in Conversations with Friends, once again, there's 4 characters actually 3 being women and 1 being a man. And so it speaks about Nick sort of kind of being spineless in a way, and he dealing with depression, and he has his super controlling wife who takes care and handles everything. And then you have the dynamic between 2 women who used to be lovers and now who are just friends. And it's just magnificent. You know, I just like the way that she tells a story. I like the way that she uses the characters to propel the story forward instead of a plot. And that's really all that I can have to say about this one. And they were honestly excellent to read. They were. It was really nice diving back into those stories. It didn't reveal anything less. It just really added more to my life. So the next book, I'm utilizing my story graph here. After that, I read Evenings and Weekends by Ocean McKenna. This was published this year, I think, but I don't know when. May. It was published May 9th by Fourth Estate. And I enjoyed this story immensely. It was really good. I read it also via audiobook, and it was produced very well. Once again, read well. I feel like I was listening to a podcast / like movie type of thing going on. So I'm going to kind of briefly, because honestly, one thing about this though, I can tell you, I was trying to think about what I remember. And there's quite a few storylines to follow in this book. It's heavily plotted, and there is a cast of characters. But the main plot that I remember is that this one couple, they are engaged to be married, I think, or their boyfriend and girlfriend, and the girl ends up being pregnant. They're thinking through things, trying to figure out what to do next, and he's actually grappling with the fact that he is probably gay. That's the main storyline that I remember and I enjoy following. Everything else is kind of sort of a blur. And then someone's mom has cancer and she doesn't want to tell anybody. So, yeah, okay, so here it is. So, everyone but Maggie. She's 30. Oh, sorry. Summer in London stops for no one, not the half-naked boozers, stoners, and cruisers, the hen parties glugging from bejeweled bottles, the drag queens puffing on hurried fags. It's June 2019 and everyone has coverage on the city's parks, beer gardens, and street corners to reveal in the collective joys of being alive. Everyone but Maggie. She's 30, pregnant, and broke, faced with moving back to the town she thought she fought to escape. She's wondering if having a baby with her boyfriend Ed will be the last spontaneous act of her life. Ed, meanwhile, is trying to run from his past with Maggie's best friend Phil and harboring secret dreams of his own. Right. So he didn't have sex or anything with Phil, but Phil is gay and he lives a gay out lifestyle, and Phil knows that Ed has had homosexual experiences, and he's like, now, like, okay, it's nice that you and Ed have been dating for so long, but you mean to tell me that you guys are gonna have a baby now? Absolutely not. So that's when Phil is like, if you don't tell her, I'm gonna tell her. And so the story kind of just follows all of the things that are happening, and then everything kind of like comes to a head at a party. And so that's why I said this one's really plot heavy, and I enjoyed reading a more plot heavy story that was also still giving that good conversational vibe, and you're still learning about people individually as well as together, and still moving. Oceana McKenna was still moving the plot forward. So I enjoyed that. So let me finish. Phil hates his office job and is living for the weekend while falling for his housemate Keith. But there's a problem. Keith has a boyfriend and there might not be room for 3 people in the relationship. Then there's Rosaline, Phil's mother, who's tired of feeling like a side character in her own life. She's just been diagnosed with cancer and is traveling to London to tell Phil if she can ever get hold of him. As Saturday night approaches, all their lives are set to change forever. Set across 2 scorching hot days in the feverish capital, Evenings and Weekends is a vivid portrait of a city and its inhabitants that announces the arrival of a vital new literary talent. And that's why I can tell you, even though it's like hard to kind of remember, probably because this book would have served me best if I would have read it physically first and then followed up with the audiobook for like a second go round, but I don't have it. And I was just in Everand, formerly Scribd, and I was like, oh, they have weekends and evenings here. Wow, this book just came out. They never do that. But then when you think about it, Oceana McKenna is a new author, and a lot of times to put themselves out there, you know, maybe your publisher decides to like, okay, let's get you on this, that, and the other, so that people can get used to your writing style, so that by the time your next book comes out, everyone will be checking for you. So I enjoyed it. I definitely probably will order the book version and read it physically the next time, but I really liked it. It was a good story. It was good. And the ocean and the audiobook was produced magnificently. It's a great audiobook, especially if you read the book physically first. So it was a great story. And yeah, really, really good. So I enjoyed that. The next book that I read after that was on audio as well. It was Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Gotta tell you, I don't get it. I don't get the hype. I don't even understand why I was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize. Child, and it was very, very short, 116 pages. The audiobook was just under like an hour and 45 minutes or something like that. I don't get it. It's about, I can't even tell you what it's about. It's about a man who discovers something about the women in like these laundry houses and how they're being treated. It is 1985 in an Irish town. During the weekends leading up to Christmas, Bill Furlong, a coal and timber merchant, faces into his busiest season. As he does the rounds, he feels the past rising up to meet him and encounters the complicit silences of people controlled by the church. Yeah, it's about like something about the laundry houses. I don't know. Girl, I didn't really care for it. I'm just going to tell y'all that now. But I gave it a listen, and it is what it is. Okay. I hate to sound like that, but I almost never read books that don't give me something. You know what I mean? That one didn't give me anything. So, moving on. And that was the last book. No, that was September. So we're moving into September now. So I read Evenings and Weekends in September. I read Small Things Like These in September. And then after that, I read Elena Nose by Claudia Pinheiro. And now this was awesome. I love this. I loved Elena Nose. Okay, so Elena Nose follows the main character, who is a mother. Her name is Elena, and we follow her trying to investigate what exactly happened to her daughter Rita. Now, her daughter Rita committed the S word by hanging at the local church, in the front of the local church. And the whole thing about it is, Elena is like, my daughter would not do that. Like, I know you're trying to sit up here and tell me that this is what my daughter decided to do, but my daughter would never do something like that. So she goes on a journey, and she goes to this woman, and she's trying to ask her for a favor because she's really trying to investigate and figure out what happened to her daughter. Whole time she's struggling with the disease of Parkinson's. She has Parkinson's disease. And so if you know anything about that, I really do think it's like it affects your mobility, it affects your mind, it affects your body and all of these things. And so it affects your memory. And so the main thing about it is following sort of like the dynamic between what Elena remembers, but not what she knows. You know, it's also a play on that Elena knows. Do you really know Elena, or is this what you think you know? Or you're thinking about what you remember because the disease is taking over. And the relationship dynamic between Rita and Elena when Rita was alive, and like how she would take care of her mother, and how the tables probably needed to turn, but the mom was not able because of this afflicting disease. And honestly, I just also like the way that the story was written, the way that Claudia Pinheiro tells a story. Magnificent. That woman has class. I'm going to have to pick up some more by her. and like keep the Claudia Pinheiro train actually going. And I loved it. Now this one makes sense to have. I think this was also shortlisted for somebody's prize or another or something. This one's deserving of it. It was great. So the next book that I read in September was Moo by Jane Smiley. This is my second Jane Smiley, the first being 1,000 Acres by her. And this one's also magnificent. I'm definitely not going to speak too much about this. I have a vlog where I talk about this very vaguely. I more so speak about my experience reading it and how it made me feel, which is where I'm leaning towards with this channel in general. But it is a campus novel. It's about academia. It's a parody on academia. It follows the students at Moo University. It follows the faculty, the staff, the administration, the townspeople, and the intrigue and the gossip and just how things work. I'm laughing because it's a funny book. And just how things work and the inner workings of at a university and like how corrupt things are and things can be, and mainly here it's heavily plotted, so it's plot driven. There are character studies in here, all the things, but my favorite thing about this book is the way that it was written and the word choice and just the way that Jane Smiley just set up the scenes, and the way that she's chose to give us detail about the characters. I just really enjoyed that aspect. It was unlike anything I've ever read, which is another thing that you're gonna like probably continuously hear me speak on when we're talking about Jane Smiley. She's a very unique author. And her voice is very distinct, I will say. And so, yeah, I liked Moo. I liked Moo a lot. And the last book that I read was, of course, the my latest video, the new Sally Rooney, which is Intermezzo. Intermezzo just came out last week, September 24, 2024, and it is Sally Rooney's fourth novel. Her fifth book in all, but her fourth novel. Intermezzo follows two brothers, Peter and Ivan. Peter's the oldest brother. He's a lawyer, and Ivan is a 22-year-old chess prodigy. And it follows their relationship and how everything is working after the loss of their father. Their father has passed away, and both of them are grieving, of course, in their own way. So it just follows that. It follows the dynamics between their dating, their dating life, and them as brothers, and the lost communication between the two of them, and how they are moving through life after such a great loss. And this is just another one of those Sally Rooney books that speaks to the person, the connection, the personalities of individuals, as well as the connections that they make in this life based on numerous reasons. The decisions that they make based on where they are in their life. For example, with Peter is in between two women, Sylvia and Naomi, and they are completely different from each other, and they understand why he's doing what he's doing, and he's just trying to figure out what's going on with him and what moves he needs to make. And he's coping also by kind of self-medicating. So you kind of get into the realm of that and how that looks in his lifestyle as well. And then you move over to Ivan, who is falling in love with an older woman named Margaret, who is a lot of years older than him. And to anyone on the outside looking in, it kind of seems a little bit predatory. But then again, it's just like, you can't help but love Margaret at the same time. But it gives you kind of like, am I supposed to feel icky about this, or am I supposed to understand? But I don't know. These are all of the like ideas that Sally Rooney tackles in her novels that make her so interesting and make you so like become so engulfed in them and want to like complete it to the end to see what happens, to kind of help you figure out how you should feel, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And then I spoke a lot about this book already, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But another thing that I just absolutely love about Sally Rooney's books are the fact that she captures the millennial experience, ideology, and mindset very well. There's a specific type of millennial, I'll say that, because I'm not going to say she speaks for the entire generation, but a specific group of us, she definitely speaks to us, and she definitely gets it, and she understands. And so, yeah, I feel very seen when I'm reading her. And yeah, other than that, those are the books that I read for the months of August and September. So hopefully now that we're in October, moving into these the fall and winter months, I'm able to like really keep these up monthly and not get too behind. But hey, as we know, life happens, and so we just move with the times. So I'll do the best that I can. All right, so you guys stay in touch, and I'll see you in the next upload. All right, so thank you so much for watching, and until next time, deuces.